In 1884, my grandparents, Jim and Bridget Kelly, were married. For wedding presents, they got 2 cows and $1.25 cash. One cow was white, and they called her the old white cow. The other cow was brown, and they called her the old brown cow. But the old white cow was hard to keep in. That time, of course, there was no wire fences, it was just poles. She'd knocked the poles down. She was a kind of a nuisance, actually, because when old white cow would get out, of course, old brown cow would follow. Grandpa was chasing them half the time. So they sold old white cow and bought a stove. Eventually, they got another cow, and they called her Louie. Getting back to the $1.25. A couple of days after they were married, they hitched the buggy up or the horse up in the buggy, traveled out 3 miles to the scow landing. A scow was actually like a small ferry. They took the scow across the Gatineau River, drove 6 miles down to a general store, and they bought a clock. They brought the clock home, and my dad and all my uncles and aunts learned to tell the time by that old clock. Eventually, Grandma moved off the farm, and my dad took over. But the clock stayed on the farm. So me and my 5 brothers and 3 sisters all learned to tell the time by studying that same old face. In 1986, my dad died, and I went back to the funeral. After the funeral, we went back to the farmhouse. By this time, my brother had the farmhouse. And he said, if anybody wants anything in here from Dad and Mom, you can have it. Some of my sisters, there was a couple of platters or something that Mom had that they wanted, dishes or whatever. And I'd said, if nobody else wants the clock, I'd like to have it. So nobody cared less. So I made a box, made a wooden box. The clock is about 30 inches high and 16 inches wide. I made a box and brought the clock to Edmonton. The first time in 102 years it left the farm. I wind it up every night. Keeps perfect time. And I really like that clock, and I wrote a song about it. Actually, I've been telling stories all night, so I let the clock tell the story. I was there in the shelf. I was there on the shelf of the general store in October 1884 when a young couple looking for a clock to buy came into the store, and I caught Bridget's eye. Look, Jim, isn't this clock nice? With the money we have, we can afford the price. $1.25 we'll gladly pay. That's the money we got on our wedding day. They had just got married, and in their prime they needed a clock so they'd know the time. They had a couple of cows, one old horse. Jim built a little house where they'd live, of course. How excited they were when they carried me to the buggy. Bridget took me on her knee. Jim untied the horse down the road. He trot, couldn't wait to get home with their nice new clock. Jim nailed a shelf on the kitchen wall. Now my old face could be seen by all. 7 little Kellys learned to tell the time by studying this old face of mine. I soon became like a dear old friend. On me they knew they could depend. Every evening when Bridget tucked in her little flock, she said, "Jim, don't forget to wind the clock." I've watched the family through the years, heard their laughter, saw their tears. Those dear little children sing and play, and the family in the evening as they knelt to pray. Time slipped by, then came the day when those children all married or moved away. It's been 4 generations, I'm still here, 18 and 84, what a wonderful year. I've been passed down from father to son since that day in the store where it all begun. They spent their wedding present on this old clock. I've kept them all in time with my old tick-tock, tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Thank you, thank you.